Hey guys, welcome into Rock Painting 101. So today I have a fun design for you guys. I'm getting down to the bottom of my rocks. This is an older rock I got from the landscaping company. It's pretty rough and bumpy, but I wanted to show a fun design that you could do on your rock of any kind of style. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sketch on a rough heart shape on our rock. Now, I have multiple Posca pens. Some of them are newer than others. I buy them in 3-packs and I kind of go through rotation. So this is an older one that I have. It still has plenty of paint in it, but the tip is worn down. This is a really rough rock, so I'm going to start using this pen. When I do some of my details later on, I might pull my more fine tip one off to the side here. But I'm just very lightly going to sketch a heart onto my rock. And it doesn't have to be a super solid line right now. And I'm doing my heart in more of a straight edge style shape. And what I mean by that is I'm not gonna have any arches. They're just gonna be straight lines on our rock here. So you'll have to do a few straight lines to create that shape. I've sketched this on a piece of paper before, so if you're unsure about it, you can sketch it on a piece of paper first. But just like that, straight edges, and we can straighten them out more when we go back through here in a bit. So once you have that on here, we're gonna fill this in. I'm using a darker rock, so I know I'm gonna do a bright pink heart, but I'm just gonna do a white layer underneath to help this pink kind of pop off the rock. So I just like, if I'm going to use one color without water or blending, I just shake up my paint really well. And I usually work right out of the lid. If you need more paint, just twist it on, fill it back up. And I'm just going to fill in this white all the way to the edges, as close as I can get with this brush. I have a smaller one here too, if I need it. Make sure you get into any of those lumps and bumps. Like I said, this is a rougher rock, but that doesn't mean it can't be beautiful and painted as well. This is all I used to paint for the longest time, are these really bumpy, rough rocks. I haven't been able to go to landscaping company for a while, but this is just one I stumbled across that needed to have some paint put on it. So we're just gonna fill this in. Once you have this filled in, make sure you put your lid back on your white. I'm not going to do a second layer of it. I know if I was going to keep this white, I would, but this is just to give it a base coat so that our pink can be nice and bright on top of it. Now we're going to let this dry completely before we go back in with our pink. So I'm just rinsing out my brush here, placing it off to the side. While this is drying though, we're gonna work on some of our cracks. I know you saw the picture at the beginning, so we want to make it look like this rock has been broken and this heart is kind of inside showing through the cracks. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is kind of make some of that webbing that kind of goes out and away. If you think about like a broken piece of glass or windshield, you've got the main crack and then you have these little legs that kind of come off to the sides. So you have to start doing those. Now I am using my pointier 1M pen. I use these straight on rocks all the time. Just if you're on a bumpier rock, remember nice light touch is all you need. I always say the paint wants to be on the rock. You can always go back and add more paint, but you really don't have to press down hard. You can almost just kind of go right along the top. So don't push down. You can, yeah, that's the biggest tip that I have. So any place where there is a corner area, I'm going to create almost like a really bumpy Y shape. And I'll bring this up a little bit closer so that you can see. So just kind of a really bumpy, I guess it's kind of a V. I didn't have much of a leg here, but a shape that comes off of there. I'll do another one right here. So you can have them go as far away as you want, kind of just let the rock kind of bump its way in. You want it to be kind of bumpy, and then another one going out kind of the other direction, just like that. And you're just gonna do that. I always start at anywhere where I have a point, because that's a natural kind of spot where it might have cracked a little bit further away. And then we'll create a couple areas where it might have cracked, like along this long straight area. And again, I'm not filling it in 100%. I'm not making sure it's in all the gaps yet. I'm just kind of laying them out as of right now. And this I might actually have it pull and have like more of a point inside, but I don't want to get any white on my paint pen. So you can kind of have a couple places on the side where maybe you have a couple just single cracks, or you can have the little Y shapes. There you go, like so. All right, so once you have those placed, then you'll be able to go and thicken these lines and make them more, I guess you could say, on purpose. We're not gonna worry about having the texture come up onto the heart much yet. We will do that as we kind of finish up. So first thing I do is try to find a spot where my white is nice and dry. Let's work here at the bottom. You want your crack to get a little bit thicker as it gets closer to where it's attaching to your shape slightly. So you've got your finest line out here. We can kind of trace back along that and pull it in, and then we can kind of widen at the base just a smidge. You see that? So just like a little bit of a widening at the base, almost like a triangle shape if you've got a single bump. Okay. And then you can kind of carefully and lightly go back over those lines and let that paint get in there. If you push down too hard, you risk that you could splatter your paint. So just really light and easy, kind of let it bump along those little divots in the rock. It actually makes it look more realistic. So if there's a big divot in your rock, just work around it. Okay, so I'm gonna finish doing the rest of these around my rock and let this white dry completely, and then we will keep moving on. All right, so our white has had some time to dry. So we're gonna go ahead and fill in with our bright, this is like neon pink. You could do this whatever color you want. I just wanted this really bold, bright color popping from the inside of this rock. So I'm gonna go pretty close up to the edges to make sure I cover all my white, but I am gonna leave a little bit of space because you can work with some of the cracking on the edges as well. So anywhere where the white doesn't completely meet the black, that's okay. When we do our lining, that will all make sense. So I'm just gonna go pretty close to the edge. I do have a smaller brush that I can come in and do some more details with once we've got the main color in here. I'm just gonna fill this in. So I did have a little spot in there where my white was still wet and I got it into my paint. If that ever happens to you, you can just kind of reach in with your finger and get that dab out of there before you put it back in. A little bit of white isn't going to mess up this color, but just keep that in mind. We are going to let this pink dry completely before we come back in and start doing any of our lining with our black again. And then since my white was a little bit damp, I should have waited a little longer. Maybe we will end up probably doing another coat of the pink. Unless it dries in a way that we really like, then we might leave it. I kind of like the white texture kind of popping through where the rock was at its peak. So I might end up leaving that. We'll see. I'm just going to let it dry and then we'll make that decision. Once you've given your heart time to dry, we're going to come in and kind of work a little bit more with our outline edge. You can let it bump up and over the edge a little bit of your heart in places because it will make it look more like it's broken out of the rock. Okay, and then we want that line to be a little bit more defined and dark. You can have little pieces that actually turn into broken parts that maybe didn't completely fall off. And if there is a spot that still shows some white, we'll be able to go back in with a little pink and touch that up. But we just want to kind of define the edge just a smidge here. You don't want it to be a super straight line. Kind of work with the edge of that rock. You can have pieces that actually break and leave kind of like they're staying on. But really use the shape of your rock to create these edges like that. I really missed my pink there on the edge on this side. We are also going to add just a little bit of a shadow on the edge of this. Let me touch up this pink so it gets a second to dry while we're working on the other side. Use my smaller brush here so I can get it kind of right into these grooves. Like that. And I kind of like the way that it's kind of got this texture to it between the pink and the white, just because my rock was pretty bumpy, so you've got kind of the variation going on. But you do not want any white to pop through, especially along these edges. So anywhere where you see white, get a smaller brush and really get in there and get that covered. There we go. My pink water is really white over here. All right, so we'll let those areas dry a bit. But we are going to add a slight shadow to the edge here. I'm getting my brush just a little bit damp. The water is a little white, but I'm going to dab most of it off. Now I'm just going to take my black and I'm going to add a couple dots along the edge, and then I'm just going to take my brush and kind of wiggle that right on the edge here, just to add this smallest bit of shading to kind of push our heart down a little bit is what it's going to do. And I don't want to do a lot. It's just a little bit. So you're just kind of going along the edge and just taking a little bit of dampness on your brush to kind of shadow this edge. I had a little bit too much water at the very beginning there, but you'll see it'll kind of push the heart down just a bit. So it looks like it's coming from inside your rock. And this is a very important final touch here because it really helps pull off your illusion. There we go. All the way on this side as well. Go. And you could play around with your cracks and your bumps with adding some shading on the outside a little bit if you want to as well. So if you have spaces, see, like, I'll show you down here at the bottom, I kind of left like almost a full little chunk of stone there. You can kind of go in there and do some shading as well in those little areas if you want to. It's totally up to you how far along you want to go, but I want to keep this on the simple side as a 101 tutorial, but it looks really cool when it's all said and done. It really looks like this rock is cracking and that heart is kind of coming out from the inside. So I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't yet, make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss our next fun tutorial for beginners. Bye-bye.